Welcome to the Deep Dive. We aim to get you quickly up to speed on some really interesting topics.
Yeah, it's the goal.
And today we're digging into a story probably everyone's heard of. Noah's Ark. It's from Genesis chapters 6 through 9.
Right, a very famous one.
We've got some, let's say, direct reactions to this ancient story. Our mission today is really to unpack its core message. Why does it stick around? Even with, the pretty extraordinary stuff in it.
Exactly, and that extraordinary stuff is often the first hurdle. One reaction we saw was pretty blunt. Jesus, why did Noah build a giant boat? It sounds so weird.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that bewilderment, it's a totally understandable place to start.
It really is. I mean, the image itself is striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
One guy, this massive boat, this seemingly wild prediction about a flood. But when you look a bit closer, the story doesn't seem just focused on ancient shipbuilding techniques or flood geology.
No, not primarily. What's really interesting, and what the source text highlights, is Noah's trust. It says something like, "It did seem strange, but Noah trusted God's plan." When the flood came, that ark kept him safe. So that's the crux of it. His action, building the ark, it wasn't based on, logical proof in the way we might think now.
Right.
It seems rooted in, deep faith or trust in the source of the instruction.
Okay, so that trust element is key. And that brings us to this idea of obedience that pops up in the material we looked at. When God asks you to do something, even if it's hard to understand, obeying him leads to safety. That's the quote.
Yeah, and it's easy to read obedience and think maybe just blindly following orders.
Right, that's often the connotation.
But perhaps it's framed differently here. Maybe it's more about acting in line with that deep trust we just talked about, even when the why isn't totally clear.
That's a helpful way to think about it. It shifts the focus a bit.
And the source material actually makes it surprisingly relatable. It poses that question, when I don't get why mom says to do something.
Okay, yeah.
It's a simple analogy, sure, but it taps into that feeling, that experience of trusting someone, a parent maybe who you believe knows better or sees a bigger picture, even if you don't understand the reasoning at that moment.
I see what you mean. Yeah, so it's less about a sort of cosmic command and maybe more about that fundamental reliance on someone or something you believe has your well-being in mind.
Exactly. And the text follows that up by linking trust and care. It says, trust God's way and you'll see his care.
Okay. So the act of trusting or obeying in this context is directly connected to experiencing safety or being looked after.
That seems to be the core message presented. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. Whether you take the story literally or, more symbolically, it speaks volumes about how people might navigate times of huge uncertainty, massive upheaval. It's about facing something that feels overwhelming and choosing how to act based on something maybe beyond just what you can see and measure right in front of you, based on that trust.
So wrapping this up for our deep dive today. Noah's Ark, while famous for the giant boat and all the animals.
The visual part.
Right. The real lasting power, based on this reading, seems to be in how it explores trusting a plan, even a weird one.
Yeah.
And this connection between acting on that trust, called obedience here, and finding some kind of safety or positive outcome you didn't expect.
Which leaves us with a pretty interesting question to chew on, maybe for our listeners too.
Okay.
Thinking about your own life, not necessarily on the scale of building an ark, but can you think of a time when entrusting a path that seemed, unclear, maybe even a bit strange? When following that path, despite the uncertainty, actually led to something good, something safe or unexpectedly positive. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it, about those moments where we're asked to take a bit of a leap.